The same thing with new facilities, vast new facilities, a new library wing here, a new sports centre there, a new performing arts complex somewhere else. The result of the survey by the Halifax said that private education was now affordable for parents in just 18 professions. So, competitive advantage there, competitive advantage also in qualifications. When state school kids began to get too many A-levels, at every point where this happens, or GCSEs, it is the private schools who begin to argue for the A+ at A-level, for the international baccalaureate, for the international GCSE, again, continuously, so that they can outcompete the state sector. So much for the Philistinism and failures in the state. So whatever, Mary, the state sector does, the private sector will outcompete it, what it must do in order to be able to survive. Now, of course, hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays to virtue, and this has been found out. I mean, Barnaby says, I don't apologise for the state of private schools, but actually he does apologise for it, which is why so much emphasis is placed upon the notion that they're now going to give so many more bursaries than they used to. And I'm going to end just with these few stats, since Barnaby is here. This year, Harrow has said that its original fundraising target was £50 million over 20 years. Now, that is a fundraising, if my grammar school maths is right, of £2.5 million per year. Okay? That's fundraising. That's on top of fee income. At the same time, it was offering about 1.3 million in bursaries and in scholarships. In other words, only half the fundraising it got went towards bursaries, and that's not including any money that could have gone for fee raising. But this is the key point. However, much has changed in the educational environment in 8 years, and the school now wishes to raise a further £40 million in the next 10 years. Now, here's my question. What has changed that means that you want to do it now that you didn't do it before? Why weren't you doing it for the last 20, 30 or 40 years? And I'll say that the answer is this. Because, Barnaby, great man that you are, you've been rumbled.
And I'm now going to invite our final speaker, who is speaking against the motion, who's obviously going to speak from the floor, I see. And he's Felipe Fernandez-Armesto, Professor of History at the University of Notre Dame. The Americas are amongst his particular interests. His latest book is 1492, The Year Our World Began. And before his university posts, he taught at the public school Charterhouse. Felipe.
Thank you very much, Francine. I'm grateful for that. You almost managed to make me sound interesting. I don't mean to turn my back on my fellow panelists, but unlike the soi-disant, noisy, self-proclaimed radicals on that side of the house, I'm a real man of the people, and my place is down here. I'm not like those guys. I didn't go to a public school like Francis and Martin. As Francine kindly forbore to mention, I'm a prison graduate. And I'm here with a genuinely revolutionary message about equality. Because the public schools are one of the few educational institutions left in this country that can actually do something to redress the injustices of society, and I'm going to demonstrate that this evening. And I've listened, with great, awestruck attention to the media grandees on that side of the house who are so much richer and better educated and privileged than I am. And I just have to say, I began in admiration, I ended in disappointment, because I'm very familiar with everything they said. In fact, I read most of it in essays from the lower fifth at Charterhouse in about 1976. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to go over all the errors of fact and logic and common sense that characterize what they said, because one of the great treats and privileges of coming here is that one, always got a really intelligent audience who are quite capable of analysing what they've heard for themselves. We all know that Martin's a caricaturist, and it's no sin for a man to labour in his vocation. But everything that we've heard from that side of the house has been a most feeble caricature of what we all know public schools are really like, and what wasn't grossly distorted by the admittedly rather, charming and eccentric public school humour which you might expect from the gentleman on that side of the house. Everything that wasn't a distortion was, the warped memories of Francis's days amongst the roues of Harry. But all of that is as old-fashioned, as the words of the school song which he so charmingly rendered and viciously lampooned. And it's all just as old-fashioned as the one thing, the other great thing that unites the guys on that side of the house, apart from the fact they're all hacks. And they're all terribly privileged educationally. The one thing that unites is they're all clapped out old Marxists. And we've heard so much of that old trot air before, we just don't want to hear any more of it. So I won't bother, to analyse all their errors. Why should I? It would be easy, it would be cruel. Let me instead praise them for what I think was really noble and true and honest and lovely and of good report in what they said, which was their passion for equality. And I share that passion. In fact, I claim that I exceed them in it, because I've dedicated my life as a teacher and a writer to trying to do what I can to produce a more equal, a more just society, which has to be a more equal society. But I have to tell them, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't need to tell you, that they have mistaken the causes of inequality. The public schools are not responsible for inequality. They may, in some measure, be a consequence of it. We'll come to that in a moment. But they are not its cause. And the real scandal of inequality in this country today is not the public schools. Martin tells us that education makes him sick. I can quite believe it. I'll tell you what makes me sick. It's the real inequalities in this country which arise from the scandalous, billions which have been usurped by corporate fat cats and trash celebrities. And most of those guys and women were not educated in public schools. Fred Goodwin went to Paisley Grammar School, and Nick Beeson went to Parmeter's Comprehensive. Most of the products of public schools, they may include this odd, sort of eccentric, old, unsuccessful fraudster whom Francis shared his school days with. But the real scandal arises from people who didn't go to public. Most of the people in public schools, the other side already admitted, tend to go into professional vocations, into teaching, into research, into the caring professions, into the armed services, into the priesthood. And those who go into business typically are not the really scandalous fat cats. And amongst the those meretricious kiss-and-tell millionairesses, I don't notice anybody who went to Rodin or Bennington. What I do notice is that the honourable gentlemen on that side of the house are cozying up to such people in their media chat shows and the columns of the establishment organs in which they write and draw. And I denounce them. I accuse them of being armchair revolutionaries and milksop Marxists.